Welcome back to the Real Couchwives podcast, where we overanalyze all things Bravo. Ex-VPR cast member Raquel Leviss, now known as, Rachel Leviss, has launched a podcast, Rachel Goes Rogue, to tell her side of the Scandoval story, or so she says.
So not only did we listen to the first 4 episodes of this podcast for you, but we are fact-checking them.
We've got receipts, we've got proof, we've got timeline. We do not have screenshots.
Unfortunately, no screenshots. So Rachel has launched this podcast, and she says that she's been quiet for so long and is finally ready to tell her side of the story. So I guess we're just kind of like overriding the Bethany podcast, which was her first shot at telling her side of the story.
Never happened. Not a thing. Definitely not how she secured this iHeartRadio deal.
Yeah, so Bethany's like a producer on it or something.
Is she? Oh my god, she's still got her grubby little paws all over this, doesn't she?
I mean,
unbelievable.
There's something happening. It's like it's in the same podcast world that like Bethany's Just Be podcast is and stuff. There's definitely some realizations that she has that really feel like Bethany had probably planted them, especially as far as producers go, which we're going to get into shortly. I'm just overall kind of confused about this podcast. I don't know how you're feeling. Like, the timing is obviously very strategic, that it's right before like Vanderpump Rules is going to start season 11. And at first it seems like it's like, is it solely for her to tell her side of the story? Is it a Vanderpump recap? Is it, but then she has her therapist on, like what is the goal?
What is the goal? Like, who are these like anonymous hosts that are also like on the podcast with her? Like, if for people who haven't listened, and you shouldn't, honestly, it's not worth it.
But listen to our recap.
Listen to our recap, but don't listen to her podcast itself. Like, she doesn't even introduce it herself, right? Like, somebody says, some anonymous voice says, Rachel Goes Rogue, like, welcome to, and then it's just like, okay, so you couldn't even muster up enough energy to say Rachel Goes Rogue, join me on this journey, blah blah blah. Like, who knows? Nothing. She's just, it's so weird, it's so unusual. I really don't know what she's doing here.
It's very confusing. And like the first episode, she kind of says like, you know, she would like couldn't be able to stand it if she just like sat by and like didn't tell her story as she sees whatever's going to come out on Vanderpump Rules season 11. So that's kind of her like reclaiming the story. She's been seeing a therapist, so she has some like new takes on everything. That is one thing that I appreciate, is that at least now we're getting her, you know, talking about Sandoval and his like manipulation and like being a little bit more critical of him. So at least like there are some levels of self-awareness. It also makes me wonder like how we would have felt with her if we had heard this instead of the Bethany podcast.
Like if this had been the first thing that she'd done. Well, honestly, like for her sake, this should have been the first thing that she had done. She like completely screwed the pooch, unfortunately, with like, you know, taking it to Bethany first. I don't know what she thought she was going to achieve with that. And now here she is, like, just kind of like recycling a lot of old stories. And, you know, obviously it's interesting to kind of hear her take a few months later. I do think that she's starting to get some things a little bit more than she used to. She's slowly turning on Tom. I feel like we only really heard that by the 4th episode. But still, for the most part, like, she's really like towing the line, and she has some new interesting people that she's actually starting to take down along with her, which is funny, interesting to hear.
That's it. I still feel like there's a lack of accountability that you would hope you would have by now, but also like it's just it still hasn't been that much time, and hearing her talk about this stuff I'm kind of just like, I understand you want to get your story out there. I understand maybe you weren't in a place to do it before, but like we're just rehashing, like you said, and like this can't be healthy for her. And she's also opening herself up back to scrutiny. I kind of want to be like, girl, like just go live your life away from this. Like
yeah, that, or kind of like fully embrace it, right? Like actually make it like a VPR like rewatch. Like, can you imagine if she was going back and rewatching and like commenting on like episode by episode? Like, I would actually probably listen to that. That would be interesting to hear. But she would have to do that and like actually be telling the truth. She'd have to be like, yeah, so Sandoval and I actually hooked up the night before this happened. You know, here we are trying to pretend that we are normal people.
That would be so good.
Here is me calling Lala Mistress Bimbo. Sandoval actually fed me that line.
Oh my god.
Yeah.
That's amazing. That's totally what it should have been.
Right.
So yeah,
if you're gonna do it properly.
Do it right. So we're gonna unpack it because there are kind of like there's still inconsistencies. There's still things that feel like they're towing the line. Some things do seem to be true in some capacity. Some we'll never know. Yeah. But we try to do that work for you. I also feel like I have to do a PSA that I just got Invisalign. You can't. It's there.
Yeah, it's there.
It's just the first few days, so I'm still having a little bit of speech issues. So please be nice. Please bear with me.
Honestly, you know, we didn't even notice. You're sounding just as normal as ever, Carrie.
Who doesn't love adult braces?
Right.
And if you're on a similar journey, you know, let me know in the comments because I won't lie, it's hard.
Yeah, it's gonna be so worth it though.
Yeah, I hope so. I'll have a reveal in a year. Anyways, let's get into the fact check. Rachel goes rogue. I think one of the biggest things that came out in, I believe, episode 2 is that apparently the whole kissing Schwartz, the whole relationship with Schwartz was essentially entirely fabricated. Yeah. And she's putting the blame quite heavily on the producers that they pushed her into this.
Yeah, the producers and the fans, you know, apparently we got so excited about the prospect of the two of them dating.
She just had to give us what we wanted. Like, really, she was doing us a favor.
Us. It's our fault that she kissed Schwartz.
So Katie should blame the fans.
Us. It's our fault. Yeah, so she basically goes into how, you know, there had been a rumor that she and Schwartz had hooked up at Coachella. Basically, they start filming season 10. She finds out from Katie that Katie would be very unhappy if she made out with Lala, if she made out with Schwartz. So, you know, she takes a step back. She decides, I'm not going to do this. It's very interesting because she doesn't really like address the fact that like Sheena was also like heavily pushing for her to be making out with Schwartz. Like, she honestly kind of doesn't really talk about Sheena much at all until the 4th episode where she talks about the restraining order a little bit. But then apparently it was really producers more than Sheena or anybody else that stepped in and were like, whoa. We're filming a reality TV show over here. You know, maybe you don't want to close the door on making out with Schwartz. And in fact, it was to the point where they had actually even set up a private, like the private little area for them to kind of like hook up with, like the table. They'd moved people out of the way.
Right, in Mexico.
Yeah, in Mexico, sorry, at Sheena's wedding in Cancun. So they like set the stage fully for her to kind of like, you know, her and Schwartz to walk over there and to make out. Obviously Schwartz is the one that's like, I feel like we should make out, right? It was like my mouth should be in my face.
Maybe he recently got Invisalign too.
Yeah, exactly.
He's just trying to cover his mouth, guys.
I mean, maybe. So, and like, you know, she thinks that like Schwartz had also gotten the go ahead from Sandoval. So they filmed the scene. Schwartz was kind of like, she talks about how actually Schwartz was talking with his mouth over his hands like the entire time. But they went in for the kiss, knowing both of them knowing about the Sandoval thing, like fully at that point as well. She said it felt very produced and they were very much clearly playing a part in that moment. She doesn't really kind of like see how like Sandoval might have been kind of like using the two of them potentially to kind of like
look away.
I don't know, kind of like orchestrate something, right? Or like look away from like what's happening over here by looking over here.
Yeah.
And so then they just obviously decide to go somewhere more private because, you know, the crowd has cheered. They're all excited about the fact that the two of them have just finally hooked up. So they go to the second location. They talk some more, apparently. You know, they talk about how controlling Katie is and how she's the man, and Schwartz is just excited to stick it to her. And then apparently they also talked about Raquel's relationship with James, and then they make out a little bit more. And you know, she's just talking about how like this is really what producers wanted them to do.
Yeah.
And she then actually gets rewarded after they've done this like little makeout scene where a producer comes up to her and says, hey, I think you wanted to go glamping for your birthday, like I think we're gonna make that happen. And so she then kind of like insinuates that like, you know, her making out with Schwartz was the production's way of kind of like being like, okay, you did a good thing for us, so now we're gonna do a good thing for you. And this is this kind of like transactional relationship that happens by you creating drama.
And this is what I'm talking about. Like, this was planted by Bethany. Like, this clearly was not her therapist.
No.
And this clearly, like, this is just so specifically around reality's not real. Producers are forcing you into these scenarios. Mm-hmm. It's literally, it's the narrative we heard from Bethany, and the narrative Bethany continues to try to say. Maybe for other shows this can work, but like, everyone knows that, like, obviously there's like a layer of production to reality shows, right?
For sure.
But VPR is really the one that is the most true to life. Like, these people are friends. Mm-hmm. And I feel like there's so much drama that like production doesn't need to push storylines in this way. And if they were going to do that, they would have done a better storyline than this.
Yeah, that I think that definitely rings true. One thing that it kind of makes me think about is like that TV show Unreal that came out like probably like 5-10 years ago now.
That was such a good TV show.
That was a really good TV show, and it was about kind of like how unreal all of the reality TV that we watch is, and it was kind of specifically talking about The Bachelor, and kind of like all the like situations and scenarios that get crafted and created in that world. But I think one thing that like we've learned from listening to Reality Bites and just listening to like executive producers host these panels at BravoCon and like, you know, getting different insider perspectives from the producers is that they really do try to like just observe, right? They try to be there and observe. Maybe, you know, in an interview they're asking questions that are like pointed questions to kind of get like some reaction from them. But for the most part, like it really doesn't seem like they are like doing things where they're gonna be like, hey, you do this for me and I'll do that for you, like, you know, like, hey, you feed this storyline and we'll get somewhere. Because the thing is, like, also like they were there for Sheena's wedding, right? Like Sheena's wedding was big enough of an event. They actually ended up like split, like I think it was like spread over like 3 episodes. Like it was massive. It went on for ages.
So like this was not content. The main. Yeah, it's true. Like they didn't need this.
Yeah.
It's weird the way that she really just like points the finger at production. It's also weird the way that she just clearly sees the show as pure fake. Like she said multiple times like she was playing a role. She was doing what producers wanted her to do. I think she even calls her castmates like characters.
Yeah.
Like, and I think she's really trying to like push this narrative that all of this is fake. To kind of absolve herself from some of it. And yeah,
totally. That. No, I know. And that's just it too, right? Like she talks about how like production was the one rewarding her for this like bad behavior. But like, let's be honest, like if you go back and watch those wedding episodes, like Sheena and Brock were so excited about the fact that this makeout had happened. So like there's positive reinforcement there.
Yeah.
You know, the crowd literally cheered for them when they made out. Like that's like a rom-com or something, right? Like that's not a normal thing that just like happens. But I don't think production was the one cheering, right? Like it was literally the people surrounding you that were cheering and like wanted this to happen. And they were giving you the reinforcement that made you feel like, yeah, I am doing the right thing. This is a good decision. Who cares what Katie feels? And honestly, like she really does like gloss over so much of that as well, like in all of this. Like she does kind of like maybe like a little bit address like, you know, obviously, you know, I felt bad for Katie or whatever, but she doesn't really like, she's just like, more stuff to talk about over here.
Yeah, I definitely don't think she felt that bad for Katie. No. It is interesting, and this is kind of reinforced too in like the Peter story, which she basically said like the whole Peter thing was also set up by production because people apparently online thought that they were a thing.
Because he apparently commented on some photos of a photo
flowers.
Of a flower,
and people thought that he had bought the flowers.
Yeah,
so she's like, like producers are always listening, and they saw that, and they try. Like, I really don't think it's that deep. Like, I don't think that they have this like intricate web of like flowers to Peter to Raquel. Like, this is a show where literally, like, Kristen and Jax had hooked up, while Kristen was dating Tom, and they hit it a whole season. Like, this is not a show that needs to create false drama based off someone saying your flowers are nice. They're like, it's such a reach.
Good. Best flowers ever. Way to go, Raquel.
Also, who are these people that really wanted Peter and Raquel to be together? Because, like,
I'm sorry. Come on, if you were in amongst that group, can you please raise your hand? Because I just don't believe it.
Yeah, like, I think we're giving a little bit too much power to, like, the fake scenario and, like, what people might be saying online.
Totally. And I could believe that production was like, oh, we heard that you went on a date with Peter, because we know that they at least do kind of like these like preliminary interviews at the beginning of each season where they're like, what's going on in your life, like what should we be following. Like, maybe if they had found out from Peter, like, oh, I went on a date with Raquel, maybe there's something there, because obviously he has this amazing episodic fee apparently, so he wants to get in on that too, which I understand. I would, no hate to that. So maybe they were just like, oh, we heard you went on a date with Peter. Would you mind, like, if we did, like, a little recreation of it? And, like, I just don't think it was that deep. Like, I just don't think it was that deep.
No, totally. And then just to kind of close the loop on the whole Schwartz thing, it's revealed that Schwartz apparently knew about, Rachel, and Tom Sandoval from the beginning. And everything else is a lie. The timelines are a lie. He knew when they hooked up in Mexico. They went to his house.
Yeah.
This obviously is hard to check. It obviously is in direct contrast to what Schwartz has said. But we've also seen them all stumble, when who knew what.
Over the truth.
Yeah. So I think a lot of people already thought that Schwartz knew the whole time.
That's just it. Like, these men are so deeply entrenched in each other's lives, and they are so ride or die for one another. They are the most what's the thing in Succession? They're the disgusting brothers. These men are the definition of the disgusting brothers. And they, like, Sandoval would have no reason to hide this from Schwartz, because Schwartz, he probably knows just as many bad things about Schwartz as well.
It's very true. And also, like, Schwartz has made himself uncredible forever when he said, even if Jax did cheat on Brittany, he wouldn't tell. Yeah. So like, these boys are always going to cover for each other.
Yeah, totally.
And we've also seen them go against each other. Like, when Jax gets questioned, like, he will throw the Toms under the bus to deflect. Yeah. So we know that they're all, like, what's it called? Like, mutually assured destruction.
Yes. Like, they know where the bodies are buried.
Yeah. So that was all very interesting. There's also a lot of inconsistencies in her story about why she didn't want to come back, or not inconsistencies, but just like some things just that lies. We're not quite buying. Yeah.
Just lies.
Let's put it bluntly.
Yeah. So she does at the end of the second episode at the interview. It is kind of like an interview, because this person is like literally interviewing her. It's
literally strange. That's the format. Like, she's being interviewed.
Yeah.
They throw like softball questions. Like, some of it's very Andy at a reunion. Like, the question will seem hard, but then she'll kind of like skirt around it, and then they'll be like, "That's fine. We'll move on."
Oh my god, yeah. There was literally one part that, like, I don't remember what the interviewer asked her in the moment, but like it was like literally like, this is a question about A, and she just like answered something else completely different. It was just like, oh, okay. So
I think it was her relationship with Ariana. She's like, oh, are you like, Ariana says you were good friends. You didn't, like, do you still feel the same? She's like, well, let me take you back to the beginning. And she's like, well, in season 8 we weren't friends.
Yeah. Well, she did also do that then too.
And then in season 9 we were kind of more friends, and then in season 10 we were kind of friends. It's like, okay, so
we just filmed a couple scenes together, like, as you do. No, so the one I found it's the one where the interviewer asked, like, obviously it wasn't planned for Schwartz to be the cover-up the whole time, but it turned into that. Was Sandoval at all angry that it became a storyline? And then she was like, oh, well, Sandoval encouraged me to have those interactions. And then we were filming at SUR. And then like, I joined them, and they were like when they did like the little filming scene with Lisa. And then it's about how, like, the two of them actually know the truth. And it's just like, she just goes on like this whole like little tangent about like Schwartz's apartment and it being a safe place for them to meet up. And, Schwartz then, you know, was put in a bad position, and then he had to set boundaries with Sandoval, and he kept on wanting her to break up with Ariana. And then Sandoval didn't, and he didn't respect Schwartz's boundaries. And it's like, okay, can we talk more about Sandoval being angry about that storyline, or like anything about Sandoval over here? Like, I just don't understand. You just kind of went in a whole other direction than what we're talking about.
That's it. Like, there were no follow-up questions.
No.
And if you're gonna do that, then like, why even have someone to ask you the questions if you're just gonna like be selective in what you say? Like, just drive it yourself.
Totally. Totally. And she like, definitely like pre-wrote all of the answers too.
Well, this is okay, and I don't want to come off too strongly because, like, to be honest, like, we've talked about this before. There was a crowd mentality. Everyone went against her really hard. Like, you can't. It is like what she did is like horrid.
Yeah.
But she obviously has gone through a time. I do think that she should continue to heal, and this is probably not the way to do that. But like, oh my god, I literally just lost my train of thought. I was fully making a point, and I thought it was going to be a good one.
No, I totally get your point that she's like and I think that I do feel sympathy as well, because I am very aware of the fact that she is the one person that's kind of like, she's been this catalyst for all this drama, and she's really the one person that's not really benefiting or fully reaping the rewards of this drama. She's off here like doing a podcast and like trying to like generate some income from that, but she's not making the money that they're making, and she's like been ostracized from this group. She's like lost her whole old life. She's had this like awful thing happen with like her like dog, and like the reputation with Graham, and like there's just been like so many different things that have gone on. And like Sandoval just gets away scot-free, got to tour with the rest of his band for the rest of the year, and like got to film, and like, you know, just here she is just trying to make a podcast, trying to make a living.
It's true. And as you were saying that, I found my point again.
Okay, there you
go. Well, so I more just kind of wanted to preface it so we're not just like shitting on her. You know, like you understand the parts where you feel bad. You understand why she wants to reclaim this story, like you said, profit off it herself as well, but in a really non-rude way. And I think who's so bad it's good,
Ryan Bailey.
Yeah, I think he said this when they were talking to Sheena about it before it came out. Like, she's never been the best communicator, the most effective communicator, you know, and she's even come out and said she struggled with that. So I think that's what we're seeing now in her like really roundabout stories. Yeah, and they're like really like, she speaks really slowly, and like, you know, she comes up and says a lot of it's because she has anxiety or because she is nervous, and like you can understand that too. But it's just like, you committed to doing this. So like you said, like do it.
Right. Yeah. I mean, I will say one thing in her defense. The best part about listening to all 4 of these episodes is that taking notes was so easy because she's such a slow talker. It was like, I didn't even, there was a couple parts where I had to like rewind, but for the most part, like I was just typing out my notes, and I was obviously doing it with my thumbs on my phone, because who types on a computer anymore? But yeah, I was just like writing out my notes, and I was like, this is so great. I'm just like following along, and there's no pausing, there's no rewinding, there's no nothing.
It's true. And honestly, like that. When you want to be more thoughtful, like I definitely, I'm sure you can see even in this podcast, there are times when I'm listening to myself and I'm like, oh my gosh, spit it out. Like, what are you saying?
I know, I feel that way too.
So, but like, it's more just like, I feel like I get it. You had a story to tell. And you're trying to capitalize. I just don't think a podcast was the move for her. Like a weekly installment. I feel like you could have done like a long, you know, interview or something.
Yeah. And
I'm just confused by it.
Well, or she just really and the thing is like, okay, and this is a weird new tangent, but I genuinely think she needs good direction. I genuinely think she needs like somebody like to kind of like help her kind of like figure out what she needs to do, right? Like she got this direction from like her family allegedly to like file the restraining order. That was the wrong move. Yeah. Like, you know, now going on Bethany and like not having secured any kind of like financial deal from that was the wrong move. And now here she is, like also starting her own podcast, and like, you know, she's probably getting income from that, and that's great, but like even the podcast like doesn't have like a clear intention. Like there's no reason for it. There's no raison d'etre, as you will. And like I just think it needs to be like like have like you need to, a branding person to come in and be like, okay, what is your brand? How do we like attack this? What do we like do? What's the purpose of this podcast? And like how do we create something that's actually going to be worthwhile and like create something that's also sustainable enough for you that it can last beyond like a season? Because like I just don't know if this season, I don't think this podcast is going to make it past this
that's
season.
it. Also, I don't know if you went on YouTube, like I went on YouTube to look at it because it is on YouTube.
Okay. Gosh. Okay.
It's the worst format I've ever seen. It's like the picture of her like her podcast picture of the Rachel Goes Rogue. Yeah. And then there's like a little screen on the bottom of her talking, but it's not in real time. It's like a snippet that they've taken that they're playing on loop, and then it'll like zoom in and zoom out, and then sometimes like the main picture will spin like a la Paint like 1998 or something, and then like sometimes the words will like move.
God. Oh my god. Okay, I have to try to listen to it. I just had to like pull it up to just see this for a second. Yeah,
it's very interesting. Anyways, I digress a lot. One of the things that
there's nothing here. What?
It's very odd. But if you move it along, sometimes like the words will move like word arty.
A little bit. Come back 1 minute. What?
Yeah, I don't know.
No.
I don't know I don't know what's going on there. Okay, why she didn't come back.
Yeah, sorry. good call.
She says that she didn't come back because, well, she's thought that like Tom would still be in her ear and she didn't know if she was like strong enough. That's fair. Mm-hmm. But she also said that she didn't feel that she'd be able to get her point across for a variety of reasons. One was because Bravo wouldn't let her break the fourth wall. Mm-hmm. And that we're going to call out as a lie because as we have seen, that is like the new extension of Bravo, the hot mics, what else is there other than hot mics? Like the talking about things on social media. Like they've even now let them talk about the reunion. They don't just say when we were in New York. Like sometimes they'll say the reunion. Like Bravo has broken the fourth wall. Like it's not really an issue anymore.
That's just it. The days of old school kind of like reality TV where they like don't acknowledge anything is gone. Like we're not there anymore. So we very much are able to and very much enjoy breaking the fourth wall, and it's like fully necessary in some moments for the production to do that. And I think it's been proven that people love that. Like that's our favorite thing. So that's just such a strange kind of like take for her to have. Specifically like around like production, as if they're like they aren't chasing the truth, they're chasing storylines, they aren't chasing the real drama, they're chasing like fan-led drama, like just like weird like insinuations about that as well. And like I think we've kind of like already addressed this, but like it's just interesting that like in her mind production is enemy number one. Like they are the ones that have done the worst things to her. It just doesn't make any sense. And
no, go ahead.
Well, even her like allegation that like production actually knew about the affair because they had footage of her and Tom in Mexico. And like when she said that, I was like, oh my god, there was footage of them in Mexico. They didn't use it. I can't believe
that would not happen. If there was concrete footage of them like in any type of precarious situation, like it would have been added.
Especially because we'd already found out at that point. They would have slotted it in. But there's that moment when we see like Tom like smacking her behind when they're all like Tom, Ariana, Raquel, and Sheena are going to go to the pool. They decided that they're done with talking about the little Schwartz hookup. They're going to go to the pool, so weird. Whatever. And he like smacks her bum, and she just like does like the little whoop. And like it's a scene with there's a shot with all four of them in it, and it's one of those things where like we thought that that's what it was, but even like with us thinking that, like there was no like full confirmation that that's 100% what it was. So like how would production even know what it was?
And also like if they knew, they would have chased it so hard and we would have gotten everything added back into it. They have said that they did not actually edit any of the scenes until the last two that were when they picked up filming. And also we know from Reality Bites as well that like they said like they go where the storyline is, and that's how like they kind of talk about how there's like A characters and B character, or A cast and B cast, and like that determines like if you're main character and like the like price you get and all that kind of stuff. But like that's kind of what made up for in Southern Charm, like Catherine was actually not a full-time cast member, but the story went with her because she had the drama, and that's where it went, and they followed her. If they thought that this was happening, they would have followed this story a lot closer than they did.
100%. And they've even said as well that the part of the reason that they didn't follow it is because when they talked to Ariana was like, oh my God, no, come on. Like that's a silly rumor that somebody made up, and like nothing's happening there. And so they were like, oh, okay, never mind. We'll wrap it up.
That's true. And I think that like
season 10 done.
It's weird. Like if they did know, I don't like it obviously wouldn't like would someone on production tell her? I don't know, that's so messy, but I feel like at least they probably would have like tried to follow it until she found out.
Exactly. They would have been like, no, I think we're going to keep filming. I think we have a few more scenes that we can get, and then they would have like done what they could to like get it. But
okay, so speaking of Ariana, one of the other things that Rachel addresses is the throuple comment, wanting to be in a throuple with Tom and Ariana. Do you want to break that down for us, Iris?
Yeah, sure, let's do it. Well, interestingly, that's actually right after the scene of the alleged bum smack, let's call it. So in Mexico, after Schwartz and Raquel have made out, she talks about how they've gone out clubbing. They go back to Sheena's like room for the after party, and then they go skinny dipping, or like they go swimming in the pool, the jacuzzi. And so obviously we see that scene in Vanderpump Rules, but the way that she portrays it this was in the 4th episode of her podcast, she makes it sound like it was literally just like her, Sandoval, and Ariana that like got into the jacuzzi, and they got into the jacuzzi, and Ariana was the one that was naked, and Rachel was the one that was like in her little dress, and Sandoval was there, and like she acts as if that's like the justification of how they could have been in a throuple, because they were once in a pool together and Ariana was naked and she had done other stuff with girls.
Oh, that was the thing actually. Like, did you notice the way she just so blatantly was like, well, and you know, Ariana hooked up with Lala. Like, Ariana's talked about the way that Tom has kind of like weaponized that against her, or like kind of like tried to embarrass her about that, and I thought that it was so not cool for her to just bring it up in this context.
Yeah, and he like the way that he like brought that up, he like fully outed her. Like we hadn't known before he mentioned it at his birthday party, whenever that was, back in like season 5 or something, that she was bisexual. But he outed her publicly on TV without her consent.
I can't believe she didn't like go after him more for that. Like literally your boyfriend outing you on national television, like.
I know. She gave him like such a pass. Like for so many things for too long, unfortunately. It's very upsetting. But yeah, for like Raquel to just kind of like insert that, and also just like to paint that picture of something that would have been as if it was like so like salacious or whatever, when like we literally, like, production was there, like all of your friends were there, 1 million people were there, like it wasn't just the 3 of you hanging out in this pool naked together. But
that's it. And I think someone said like, oh, Tom's kind of making it like trying to blame Ariana for not knowing or something, and she's like, no, I think that's like horrible that he's doing that. But then she also said like, oh, like they give off a vibe that they're like in an open relationship, and like the pool thing, and like just all of these little things. It's very similar to her addressing the were you friends or were you not friends with Ariana. And I think what she's trying to say is we weren't best friends,
right?
But like you went on podcasts and said that she was your best friend. Like that's you did that to yourself.
Like you did that the day that you got outed in this relationship with Mr. Tom Sandoval. Like that was happening. Like you guys were friends, and like Ariana has obviously addressed it. She talked about it on the Call Her Daddy interview a lot. She talked about it on Watch What Happens Live. She's talked about it a million times on all the podcasts that she's been on. She's been on Sheena's podcast. And she's talked about having like Raquel over for like Thanksgiving with like her friends, I guess Friendsgiving, and having her like at her like house in for Coachella. Like it's like maybe you guys weren't having like exclusively one-on-one time, but you were part of Ariana and Tom's kind of like inner circle. And it's just so interesting to me to go like, because obviously like doing this, like we went back and like watched some of the old episodes from season 10, and it's just so interesting how like right after guys night, all of a sudden it's Tom Sandoval's house and it's Tom Sandoval's pool party.
Oh my god,
and
it's so true.
Right away she like makes that like fraction, I don't know, like whatever,
distinction.
Like distinction of like, it's Tom Sandoval's house, it's Tom Sandoval's pool party, I don't have any relation, I don't know who that girl is, I don't know who you're dating, like that's not my friend. I'm not friends with her, I've never been friends with her, I've never seen that girl a day in my life.
But at the same time, it almost seems like maybe she even got closer to Ariana as this was happening, at least in the way that she's retelling the story, because she's like, oh, it's just so funny, we said it before, but like for some reason she's like, well, let me take you back to season 8. Season 8, not friends. Season 9, kind of friends.
because of COVID.
Because of COVID. And then she's like, in season 10 we had call times together, specifically calls it call times, calls out the 2 scenes we see with her, just so that we know these are not real interactions, this is a call time, I was told to come and go shopping with Ariana. But then she's like, then we started hanging out more. Like, she invited them all to her glamping birthday. Like, obviously they developed a friendship. Maybe they weren't as close at the time the affair started, but they definitely were when it ended.
Well, that's just it. And like, so one thing that obviously people have like been pointing out from the beginning is that Ariana was the only person that went to that puppy party.
Oh god, the puppy baby party shower
for Graham. So like Ariana was at least like the one person in this friend group that was always kind of giving you a shot, even when like it wasn't Sheena, it wasn't anybody else, it was only Ariana. And it's just interesting how she kind of like makes that distinction. But then I also think, and I can't remember now if it was in episode 4, I think it was in episode 4, that Tom kind of liked to play with the boundaries of like what he could get away with, and like having her around, like insinuating having Rachel around in front of Ariana and like having her like at their house and like having her sleep over at their house was like what he liked to get away with.
It's so
like,
gross.
This dude was using you. Like, you were going to his concerts, you were watching his awful singing and like performing, and like you're just eating it up. And
this was the dude. This was the dude that you blew up your life for.
This is your man. This is your man.
One thing that happened in episode 1 actually is they played back an interview that he did where he said like, this wasn't about looks, like she wasn't just some hot girl, like I was a model for 14 years, like it was beyond that. And she actually said like his voice repulses her and she thinks that was like so cocky, and like so she's definitely at least starting to change in the way that she thinks about him a little bit. Less so towards Ariana though. Like
I know, and that's just it. I just don't think she's there yet, unfortunately. But you're right. I think, but even by the end of episode 4, she was really like, it felt like she was finally kind of understanding like Tom's role and things, and she was actually starting to get heated about kind of just like how this all went down,
and that's what we're here for.
He's gotten away with it. Exactly.
Like stop blaming production, stop blaming Ariana. Blame Tom. Tom is the one who was rode off into the sunset with his podcast 100%. And back in with the friends. Like that's what we came here for.
2 establishments that are doing totally fine. Apparently everybody went to Schwartz and Sandy's after the premiere party the other night in LA, and he's doing okay. Apparently they've removed a lot of items from their menu though, so apparently they're maybe not doing so okay. And like it's one of those things where they like tape over the menu. Like, others, like, so you're just kind of like, oh, okay, clearly like something used to be here, and you just kind of like put some tape on top of it because you can't afford new menus. Sucks to suck.
We gotta get there eventually. Actually, maybe that kind of goes nicely into one of the other things that came up, which is who made the first move. So, and you don't even know this yet because I listened and I was gonna tell it to you, right? So she's like, well, let me tell you the story, and then like you can decide who made the first move or not. And it definitely sounds like it was him, so like don't give him that ability to even say that. But anyways, so she says that it was like a day or 2 after guys' night. She's like episode 3 or 4. It's episode 7. Okay. I looked at episode 3 or 4. That was not right.
Too early in the season. Don't even try.
Okay, we'll give her that. But at least know the episodes you're pointing to.
I don't know. It's like episode 3, maybe 4.
I do think episode 3 or 4 is when Scandoval broke, so maybe that's what she's like confusing it.
Maybe.
It was episode 7. It was right after the girls' trip, when she crashes guys' night. So she says that she was at a scene with Lisa. talking about the girls' trip. So we did see that play out. And then like a group of them were going to go out together, but then he's like, oh, let's not go there. Let's go to the Abbey. And she just kind of glosses over that. Like, I don't know why he's like, let's just me and you go to the Abbey while everyone else goes somewhere else. And then she drives him home. At this point, they're good friends. They're talking in the car. Ariana's asleep. So also for context, Ariana's dog had just passed, right? And her grandmother not long before, or the grandmother's later.
Her grandmother comes a little bit later after Cancun, yeah.
But her dog had. So they're talking in the car, and then he's like, oh, do you want to come in for a nightcap? They try to go in, the door is locked. Ariana does say in one of the episodes that after that, like, she had to come out and let him in after this hookup.
Yeah, because he was locked out of the house.
Yeah.
He was mad at her.
Yeah, and he was mad at her.
Me.
Yeah. So that checks out. So they try to go in by the back. They can't get him by the back. They're like by the fire, and he's like, oh, you know what the best thing about this pool is that it's heated. So then they go in the pool. Yeah, they go in the pool. She's like just in her like undergarments, which is already inappropriate. Like we've passed inappropriate already. Like we're past the line.
Yeah.
And then they're like talking and swimming, and then apparently he just grabs her and kisses her, and she was surprised but happy.
Oh, gross.
Yeah.
Disgusting.
And then they go in the car because they're like, oh, let's talk somewhere else. Oh, because she wants to leave after. She's like, oh my god, what just happened? Okay. He's like, no, let's talk about it. Right. They go to the car and they hook up in the car. And then we're not sure to what extent we don't have good feelings about it.
Yeah.
And she says that he like swept her off her feet, but then like immediately after she was like, oh no, now I'm like hanging out with Ariana. And then she says she was like heavily drinking throughout the season after that because she was like uncomfortable. Gross.
Yeah. Yeah, super gross. Really gross. I mean, yeah, like I think that just the timeline of all of this, the fact that like neither of them can fully maybe agree, like we know that we've seen the footage now that Jamie, Sheena's friend, like released after guys' night of the two of them like talking together, being like super close and super chummy. Like I just think that there's like, if there wasn't already an affair happening, a physical affair kind of like happening before guys' night, there's clearly always, or not always been, sorry, but like it's clearly been something that's ongoing. And I think that that's the biggest part of the reason why we can't get like a clear answer from these two, is that there was other things going on.
Yeah.
And that's just so sneaky and suspicious.
And the other thing too is like in that episode there's guys' night, and then the next scenario where like the whole group is together is a pool party at Tom and Ariana's.
Yes.
So it's like, did it happen between guys' night and that pool party?
It feels like it did.
That's so gross.
It is, because it's also like, it's just you like, and I know that I always say this, but you come into that that pool party, and like the way that Sandoval like fully just is like there to like go to bat for Raquel, and he like really wants to like stand up for her against Katie and Lala, which obviously is his favorite thing to do anyways. He loves being able to yell at those two.
Yeah.
And he's so annoyed when Ariana's like, Tom, I'm not gonna have this be like a Tom against the girls kind of thing. And it's just because he's like, he loves to go to bat, and he just like is so excited to be able to do that for Raquel, and finally just be like outraged at the two of them once again. It's just this man. This man takes up way too much time in my brain, unfortunately. I know. Spend so much time thinking about him. He's my Roman Empire. My hatred for Tom Sandoval is my Roman Empire.
It's too much. And now he has now he's like has a podcast, and he's just like, I just want him to go away.
Yeah. I know.
The other thing that came up too was they talk about the Graham story. And I think this is a who knows situation, but basically I'll break it down.
Yeah.
She got Graham as a birthday gift for her graduation.
Yeah. Which is different, because I thought that James had gotten Graham for her.
I thought so too, but apparently her mom got it for her, or for her parents.
So maybe they just changed the story for the show to make it sound
so then it is a little bit more odd that like James ended up with this dog, because it wasn't even
his,
but it did become his later. I don't know.
Yeah.
But as a lot of people have said, Ariana said, James has said, Raquel has said, he has behavioral issues, he bites, he's aggressive. Rachel, I keep calling her, she like says a lot about how James would kind of like antagonize him and like she says that he wasn't like the best dog owner, especially for like the type of needs that the dog had. And when Rachel was at like the, what's it called, the facility there, like
the treatment center,
Graham had bitten her mom really badly, like down to the bone, which we know as well. But what she says happened is basically the vet wanted to have him put down, and they were like, no. So they found like a place that will kind of like rehome like troubled dogs. Yeah. Like it was like a golden doodle rescue, and her dad drove him out there, and it was really sad. And when you give them in, like you can't have any say about who they're going to go to. It's kind of like you relinquish control in that way. And I think he was with another family. They bit the family, brought him back. He even bit the trainer. Then they needed like more money to train him again. And at that point they had scanned his chip, seen that he was from Vanderpump Dogs, called Lisa. And then Lisa adopted him and brought him to Lake Tahoe and gave him to James, which was what we're going to see play out on the show. She actually says that like they had used this to try to lure her back into the show, because apparently this was the point that production wanted her to come, and they were going to drop this on her in Lake Tahoe. She says that she had told Lisa Vanderpump that she didn't think that James was a good fit, like a good father for the dog, and that he should be with someone who knows how to take care of those dogs. And she says that Lisa cared more about the storyline than the well-being of the dog.
Yeah. Well, okay, so two things. First thing, just in slight defense of James, obviously I do think it's very possible that like in Graham's earlier life, like James did kind of do that like antagonizing the dog thing, because 100% like I see people do that to dogs all the time, and it's like so annoying. It's just like, well, it's a really bad behavior to be teaching them right now, but awesome, cool. But I think that there's a way to also kind of like realize that James might be in a different place now, and he might not be doing that anymore. And he like, you know, I think he has gotten, I like to think that he's gotten to a better place than he used to be.
That's very fair.
For the Lisa thing though, I think it's very possible that it was a little bit of a manipulation tactic to kind of get her to come back on the show. I think it also, you know, knowing Lisa's history with the Lucy apple juice storyline, obviously that's one that comes to people's mind. I do think that Lisa can be quite vindictive about things, especially when it comes to animals. And I think a little bit of public humiliation is exactly what she wanted to be able to serve up to Raquel.
Yes.
Because that's what happened with Dorit.
This part, agree. But I think that if we know anything about Lisa, it's her in like, she loves animals. Like this woman, like animals is her life. She has so many dogs, horses, swans. Like I don't think that she would jeopardize this dog. And like if she really didn't think James was able to care for him, like I really don't think that she would give him, like I agree that it's possible they tried to bring her on, but like she apparently said when she adopted him, either he'll go to James or he'll live with me.
Right. Yeah,
like she was going to take him.
Believe. Yeah.
And her and James have both responded, I think, at the VPR premiere party. Her basically saying that she has homed thousands of dogs and she thinks she knows a little bit more about dogs' well-being than Raquel.
So sassy.
And James is still saying that the dog was going to be put down, and if Lisa didn't adopt her, and he also said we would see the truth on the season. Well,
there you go. And that's just it. We'll at least see a version of the truth on the season. And you know, it just feels like it's a very unfortunate situation, especially like if Raquel's parents like aren't really like dog people. Like I think that you like are very like quick to be like, okay, well that's that, never mind, we're getting rid of this dog, when obviously there's some of us that like could like literally never imagine doing anything like that, no matter how, you know, badly behaved or whatever was happening with your dog.
That's the thing. Like I think when we first heard it, it was so hard because we were like, oh my god, no, like you're never coming back from this now. Like you literally put up your dog and now he's going to be put down.
Yeah.
She's saying that's not the case. She's saying they did their due diligence to have him rehomed.
Yeah.
Which I'd like to hope is the truth, right? Like
yeah, and I do think that that's possible, and I think it's also just one of those things where there's unfortunately so many dogs in the foster system that like can't get, you know, can't get permanent homes.
Well, especially if he's biting this badly, he does really need a lot of help, and I hope he does get that.
Yeah, I hope so too.
Yeah.
Only time will tell for little hippie.
Oh yeah, he's not even Graham anymore. He's hippie.
Yeah, which I really don't like that name, but
I know
it's not my dog. I don't get a choice.
So yeah, that was kind of the biggest things I think that came out of the podcast. Is there any last one you wanna go get in?
Super small, super tiny little detail. So she obviously talks about the letters and the postcard that she was sending to Tom, and I just thought it was so funny how, you know, she talked about how she was sending the letters initially to Schwartz's house. Schwartz sets the boundary. She starts to send them to Sandoval and Ariana's house, and Sandoval's like, "Oh, don't worry about it. Like, you can send them here. My assistant will intercept them, so there shouldn't be any issues. Like, Ariana won't find out." We know that Ariana kind of like goes on to Watch What Happens Live and talks about the fact that they're like pen pals and that she's getting like, you know, these letters at her house, which I totally believe because, you know, I don't think Tom really cares that much whether or not Ariana knows or doesn't know. And then it's just interesting because like we then have the Ariana comment about the fact that, like, you know, after Watch What Happens Live, she then sees that Raquel kind of like ups the ante and sends a postcard with lightning bolts. And obviously she knows, like, Arizona lightning bolts, like Raquel, whatever, this is a thing. And it's just funny to hear Raquel talk about that moment because Raquel talks about it as if like she basically sent the lightning bolt postcard like the day that Ariana was in on Watch What Happens Live, and then she like is like, wait, no, come back to the postcard. I take it back, and she's
running
like,
after the
like,
postman.
Tom, are you gonna intercept it? And Tom's like, yeah, totally, I'm gonna intercept it. And then obviously Ariana goes on to talk about it, so it doesn't get intercepted, and we totally find out about it. But obviously the version of the events that we had always heard and believed was that like Raquel had found out that Ariana was getting the mail, so Raquel switched the mail to be a postcard so that Ariana could actually read the mail.
Oh, yes.
And now here she is being like, "Oh no, I sent it and I had no idea. It was gone into the universe."
Is that how mail works?
Is that how mail works? I can't unsend.
But return to sender. But she also said she was still talking to Tom while she was at the retreat. While she was at the facility.
Sending packages, and apparently they were doing like,
which is also like
full-blown relationship.
Dude, she should get a refund for whatever she went to then. Yeah. Just because like if you were still talking to him, then you are not fully letting go and like taking part in this process to heal.
You should like sue him for damages so that you can get paid back for all
literally
of that.
He should pay for that.
Yeah, I think so. It'll probably just be the equivalent of one episode of Vanderpump Rules for him, so it should be fine.
So angry. I wish I could like
unhear that.
I wish I could boycott, but I love, you know, Ariana and all the other people, and I want to watch it. I just like, maybe we'll just fast forward his scenes.
Yeah, exactly. Don't need it. We'll just bash him on the show every week, so it doesn't even matter. We're gonna give him his.
So that's it.
That's everything.
I don't feel the need to continue listening.
No.
I feel like we'll probably get Vanderpod recaps is amazing, and she does like word for word transcription. So I think
there you go. Yeah, I think so. Transcribing it at least. That would probably be the one to go with. Don't worry about it. You can skip it. Just watch Vanderpump Rules next week, and that's what we're gonna do.
And then our recap. I'm so excited. The moment
I'm so excited. I can't believe it. It felt like it's been forever.
I know. Actually, no. It feels like it's been a second because Scandoval is just.
It hasn't ended. It is true.